Hello, everybody. Here I am to answer the end of the questions from yesterday before the EIQ live. So it's going to be relatively quick, but packed full of interesting information. And now I've lost the questions. And they are here. Okay, let's start with this. Okay, not that one, because that one is just about calories again. Okay, here's actually quite a good question. How do I know where my maintenance allowance ends and my deficit begins? And I think part of this is maybe a little bit of a misunderstanding of what maintenance is. And sometimes like we throw around these words like maintenance or like calorie deficit, and people are like, right, but what actually is maintenance? What actually is a calorie deficit? So maintenance is your total daily energy expenditure, the amount of calories that you expend in a day. That means everything. So that means like how much you move. That means just your daily functioning, staying alive. That means how much you exercise, all of it. How much energy you expend digesting food. That's your total daily energy expenditure. That is also known as your maintenance calories. So it's the amount of calories that you would have to take in to maintain your weight, i.e., to keep a level energy balance. So anything under that is technically a deficit, right? You need to like consistently create a substantial deficit in order to see changes in your body composition in order to lose body fat. So I think that answers that question. Anything below maintenance is technically a calorie deficit. And anything above is technically a surplus. But actually, a really silly way to think about it is per day, because that makes no difference. Like, there will be some days where you eat a little bit more, some days where you eat a little bit less, some days where you move a little bit more, some days where you move a little bit less. That's why maintenance isn't static. When people are like, what are my maintenance calories? It's an average. Like, on average, it would be about X. It's not an unmovable amount. And like, let's say you changed your job or something, that would also impact your maintenance calories. Okay. Hey, Emma, tips on getting back into training after flu and chest infection. Very slowly, ease yourself back in. It is not a race. That would be my best advice. And I know it's boring. I know you probably just want to get back to where you are, but you will only make your recovery slower by pushing too hard. If I have a protein bar, 20 grams of protein, and one Baby Bell, 4 grams of protein, would that be enough for a protein portion? Yes. Anywhere kind of like, if you're having high quality protein, like a protein bar, as in, and when I say high quality, I know some people might be like, that's processed, it's not high quality. What I mean by that is the amino acid ratio or the amino acids within that. So it's largely made out of whole protein, which means you're going to have a decent amount of, especially a certain amino acid, leucine, about 3 grams of leucine, which is what we know maximally stimulates muscle protein synthesis. So that's what you're looking for. Sometimes if you get protein from other sources that either aren't complete protein or don't have much leucine in them, then you need to eat a little bit more of that protein. Tim Spector, calories are wrong and calorie counting doesn't work. What alternative is he selling? He's selling the Zoe app. I also went in on this quite deep. I think it was on Monday. So if you want to know more about that, go and watch that. But I guess the alternative he's selling. What's interesting is that if you took his advice, you would probably get great results and you would attribute it to what he's saying. But actually, if you lost weight doing what he is telling you to do, it's because you are in a negative energy balance. And the likelihood is if you cut out all processed foods and ate largely whole foods, you focused on eating to fuel your gut microbiome or feed your gut microbiome, you'd actually get really, really good results for sure. And also I think he quite likes intermittent fasting as well, or time restricted feeding. Again, that might help you manage your calories, thus create a deficit and thus lose weight. But that would be why it's happening. So actually, this is what's quite hard about it. I actually agree with like most of his advice. It's just the disputing that calories have any impact. That's the issue. And then I kind of agree a little bit. And I think he's probably doing it for clickbait, because I kind of agree with his stance of like I don't know if he actually said calories don't matter. I think he said calorie tracking isn't important. And I would probably agree with that to an extent. And I guess if his argument is it's not accurate, then he's right. It's not accurate. He talks a lot about caloric availability of food. And even though it says X on the label, that isn't how much your body absorbs. Like, all of these things are valid points, but I guess it misses the point that even if it's inaccurate, it's relatively consistently inaccurate, and that actually means that you can still get great results doing it. I just wouldn't overemphasize on, like, worrying about 10 calories here and there. So I guess I agree with him on some points, just not some of the fundamentals. Just been listening. It's definitely clickbait. Yeah, it is quite clickbaity. Um, Hi, going to the gym 3 sessions a week with heavy weight. My question is about rest days. Is it okay to do body weight or light exercises, or rest day more about walking, etc.? Podcasts are great. Thanks. I would just take a full rest day. Train hard when you're on, like, intentional rest and intentional on. This is what I always talk to the coaches on AFM about as well. Like, when you are off, be off. Turn your phone off, turn your laptop off, turn your notifications off. When you're on, be on and be concentrated and don't think about other stuff. I think the same with training. It's like, train hard and then rest and recover and allow your body to adapt to that training stimulus, rather than being like, oh, I'll just do a little bit here and there. Rest. Steps are fine, obviously. Activity, different. I sometimes struggle to get my calorie target, even though I've hit my protein and fruit and veg portions. Should I be adding random food to fill the 300 to 500 calorie gap, or just leave it if I'm not hungry? Great question. So it really depends on your like, one, your calorie target, and two, if that's ridiculous. So let's say you were on 1600 calories. Over time, you're probably going to find that if you're only eating 1300 calories, that hunger is going to catch up with you. So I'd be like, let's compromise here and get you at least to 1500 calories. Whereas if you're trying to eat, say, 2000 calories and you're 300 calories under, and your goal is fat loss, yeah, I wouldn't be forcing you to eat up to the 2000 calorie mark. It kind of depends on what is actually practical, and I guess a little bit of experience of knowing that some people are like, "Oh, yeah, I got to 1200 calories, I wasn't hungry." And then it's like 3 days later, they're like, "Oh my god, I'm freaking starving," and then they massively overeat, and that's not a good cycle to be in. So I would be aware of that and be sensible with it. Generally, a good rule is not to go over or under by about 200 calories. Hi, Emma. I hope you're feeling better. Hearing lots of cold immersion benefits of late. I hate being cold. Is it worth it? I also hate being cold. It depends what benefits you're looking for. Basically, if you think about this, anything that pushes your body out of its homeostatic range can be quite beneficial to your body. So there's actually loads of benefits as well to sauna immersion, sauna exposure, whatever you want to call it, in terms of, like, increased capillary density. Actually mimics some of the benefits of exercise. Is it as effective as exercise? No. And I would imagine cold exposure is very similar. Like, it's stressing your body, and thus your body has to adapt to that stress. And some of those adaptations will be things like, basically, like, improved health markers, improved fitness, ability to deal with the stresses that you're putting on your body. And similarly, exercise is a stress as well. So it's more to do with that. And then I think there's, like, the cognitive benefits of, like, doing something hardcore and, like, what, eat the frog in the morning, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. I mean, it's not something I'm going to do because I absolutely hate being cold. Okay, what else do we have? I'm on a clean bulk to gain a booty. Great. But I'm terrified of gaining weight. I already look softer than before. Okay, I think this is quite common when people quote unquote bulk, which is a word I don't enjoy, because I don't think there's many women that are like, oh, do you know what? I really want to look bulky. So I get what you mean, like, maybe like a muscle building phase. Where a lot of people get this wrong, I think it comes from bodybuilding, is thinking that you need to put on a ton of weight or a ton of fat with that muscle. Like, it is, building muscle is very slow. So if you're just consuming, like, if you're in a big surplus and just consuming more and more calories, the benefit of that in relation to the rate at which you can build muscle, like, the benefit of the extra calories is saturated at a pretty low like, at a pretty low surplus is the word I'm looking for, which means, like, I would probably have people in, like, depending on your starting point, if you're very lean, it might be different, but maybe in, like, 100 odd calorie surplus. Like, you really want to be sitting around maintenance or just above maintenance, and then commit to it for a long period of time, because that muscle is going to take time to grow anyway, and ramping on more calories won't make the process any faster. And often when you take practicality into it, It makes the process slower because you're gonna get, don't know, maybe 2 months if you're lucky down the line and then be like, "I put on so much weight, I'm uncomfortable, I wanna diet again." That's certainly not gonna help you build muscle because then you won't be able to train quite as hard or recover quite as well. So you're better to sit at or just above maintenance as opposed to going like it's thinking you can just bulk with a ton of extra calories. Probably comes from bodybuilders because they go to extreme very lean, and actually after you've been in show condition you probably do need to be in quite a big surplus to then put on enough body fat to get into a healthy range and then to start building muscle, or from male bodybuilders who tend to, oh well actually no, that's not true, male and female bodybuilders will be taking extra supplements, steroids, which means that they probably can benefit from that extra rate of muscle building and thus the extra calories required for that. How long does it take roughly for a woman to build a kilogram of muscle? Great question, one that I cannot give a good answer to because it really depends. And primarily, it depends. One, there's huge individual variation. Secondly, it kind of depends on how experienced you are with lifting. And it's probably not the way that you think. So the less experienced you are, the easier it will be to build muscle. And then when you become more and more experienced, it becomes harder and harder to keep building muscle. So for some women, it might take 6 months. For some women, it might take 2 years to put on a kilogram of muscle. Um, so yeah, very hard to say. And also, you can't really measure it in that way anyway. Like a kilogram of muscle isn't a kilogram of weight. Like you wouldn't know, is that muscle? Is that bit of muscle, bit of fat, which normally it is? Is it just fat? I don't know. Yeah, so I wouldn't overthink it, but it's probably longer than what you think. Like, if you think that losing fat is slow, then building muscle is very slow. Are protein bars a fad? No. I love a protein bar, but there's nothing special about them. Like, it is literally just an easy source of protein that is a bit like a chocolate bar, so quite enjoyable to consume. That's literally it. Like, there's nothing. Same with protein shakes, like, it is just milk. Like, processed milk with the fat taken out of it and powdered down and, like, some of the casein potentially taken out of it and just the whey left. Like, that's what whey protein is. So you can call it, like, a supplement, but really it's just a food. It's just a processed food. Okay. Is it a myth? Is it a myth that that overtraining can cause fluid retention and bloating? It can definitely it can definitely cause, fluid retention because all training can, and does. Like, there is some inflammation. So when you exercise, you are creating small tears in your muscle, and then there's some inflammation that comes with that as well. So there will be some fluid retention, some inflammation, some potentially extra glycogen stored in your muscle. So yeah, that is the case. Um, will I always ache after workouts? Like, I work out 3 times a week forever. Will I forever ache? No, definitely not. So this has come up a lot over the last week that I've been doing these. And I think it's because so many people are going back to the gym after having a period of time off over Christmas, or they haven't been to the gym for ages and they're like, it's January, I'm going to get in the gym. And the reason that you're sore is because it's a novel stimulus on your muscle. So your muscle's not used to that, or your body's not used to that. But as soon as your body becomes used to that, it will be far less sore afterwards. And the best way to get rid of DOMS, or to get rid of, like, well, yeah, I guess DOMS, I mean in the long term sense, not like the DOMS you have right now, but is to keep exercising. The more times you stop and start exercising, you'll have to go through that period of being a bit sore after exercise again. And then once you're used to it and your body's used to it, you'll get far less DOMS. And then you maybe only feel it like when you're training, when you're changing your training program. Okay, right. I have to go and speak to Amelia now, because we had to move the EIQ live because she was incredibly unwell, but now she's fine. And thanks for your excellent questions. I won't do this on the weekend because nobody wants me to do this on the weekend. And I will do it. I'll be back on Monday to answer all of your questions. Oh no. Ooh, boo, boo.